morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right. Welcome to the worship service of the First Unitarian Church of Hobart, where we strive to put love at the center of how we show up in the world. So each week during our Sunday morning worship services, we join together in affirming that affirmation of faith. Please join me. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament. Since not everyone can attend in person, we are streaming the worship service online, and we extend a special welcome to those who are joining us virtually. The joys and sorrows portion, I did it, will be private, and we'll pause during that time. Otherwise, it will be recorded and be available for future viewing on our website. Pastor Tom is on sabbatical. Our minister, Pastor Tom, if some are new and don't know, he's our regular minister. So we have a guest minister this week, Reverend Dennis McCarty will be with us today. Reverend Dennis has served UU congregations in Florida and Indiana. He is minister emeritus at the UU congregation of Columbus, Indiana. I wanted to say Ohio. He has written novels, songs, plays, and of course, lots of sermons. So let's welcome him today. And allow yourself to enter in sacred time together. Take a deep breath. And another. And join us in the spirit of reverence. Lighting the chalice. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament. Service is its prayer, and this is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we shared together.
Let us bow down in reverence, not before carved trees or cut stone or
is in glass, no matter how exquisite, but before high ideals and challenges which we strive to make real and universal. Let us look out from our individual smallness to insights carved from the grand human struggle. Let us navigate before the looking glass that is the world and learn to laugh and love and weep and love the wide and fine. And our opening hymn this morning, I invite you to stand as you're willing and able and join in singing number 12, Life That Maketh All Things New. Okay. Oh, my
Except
mistake,
for-
34.
There's a mistake in that too, unfortunately. It's 38 is morning has broken.
Oh, okay.
Number 38. It's all right.
I was an English major. I don't do math.
Number 38, please, in your hymnals. Morning has broken. Morning has broken like the first morning. Blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning, praise for them singing fresh from the word. Sweet the rain's new fall, sung in from heaven, like the first dew fall on the first grass. Praise for the sweetness of the wet garden, strong in creation, where cuts we pass. Mine is the sunlight, mine is the morning, born of the one light, against all pain. Praise with elation, praise every morning, God's recreation of the new day.
You may be seated. When we gather each Sunday morning, we strive to bring care and attention to being together. Our ability to do well rests on our Unitarian Universalist covenant. In that spirit, let's seek restoration and renewal. I will read 3 lines from our behavioral covenant and invite you to respond to each with, may we forgive ourselves and each other and begin again anew. For all the ways that we have not dwelled together in peace, may we forgive ourselves and each other and begin again anew. For all the ways that we have not sought the truth in love, for all the ways we have not helped one another, now it's the time you greet your neighbors, turn around, smile, wave. Hi, everybody.
Morning. Welcome.
Thanks for bailing me out on the hymn. It is what it is.
This congregation expresses our deepest sorrows and greatest joys in community. We believe that a sorrow shared is diminished, and a joy shared is magnified. We pause, listening to what we hear in our hearts. If anyone would like to share today, I will come to you. Please stand and share your name. Anybody? Okay. Lift up these joys and sorrows and hold them in our hearts, including those too tender to share aloud.
And now please rise in body or spirit for the doxology. The doxology, the words are in your order of service and on the screen.
Good morning. What is God? By Gail Sfar. Once there was a wise woman named Athernava. Athernava would travel from town to town in her country, spending a few days, maybe a week in each town. People came to her with difficult problems or arguments they were having with others, and she would help them find their way towards satisfying the answers. One day, when she heard one of the towns on her route, Athernava heard a lot of arguing. She looked and saw a group of people in a very heated discussion. One person called out, "Athernava, come here. We need your wisdom." Athernava approached the group and the person who had called to her and said, "I've been telling people who God is, and they keep saying I'm wrong. I'm worried about them. Help them see what's right, Athernava." "Well," said Athernava, "what have you told them?" "I told them there is one true God who loves and cares for us, hears our prayers, and commands us to love one another." And Athernava said, "You are correct." "What?" said the others. "No, that can't be right." Then one of them said, "I believe there's a God, all right, a God who created the universe, established the laws governing it, set it going, and left. God has no interest in the affairs of humanity. It's up to us to make this world a place we want to be." And Athernava said, "You are correct." Then a third person said, I believe there are many gods and goddesses. They are part of my worship, all of nature and the cycle of life. And Athanerva said, you are correct. I'm not at all sure there is a God, said a fourth. I see a divine spark in everything and everybody, but maybe it's just part of human consciousness. And Athanerva said, you are correct. Well, I don't believe there's a God at all, said the last person in the group, but I am truly awestruck when I think about the mystery of the creation of our universe and how we came to be. I believe it's my responsibility to leave my corner of the world better than I found it. And Athanerva said, you are correct. At this point, everyone was confused. But how, they said, can we all be correct when we have all different ideas of what God is or isn't? Yes, you all have different visions, but each of those visions can lead you to love and care for each other and this wonderful part of creation we call Earth. And that is the correct vision, however you label it. And as Athanerva left, the people in that group agreed that they didn't need to argue about who was right. They needed to work together to make the world that they wanted.
Now please rise in body your spirit for the middle hymn, number 12, Life That Maketh All Things New. Number 12. Oh, life that maketh all things new, the blooming earth, our thoughts within, our pilgrim feet wet with thy dew, in gladness hither turn again. From hand to hand the greeting flows, from eye to eye the signals run, from heart to heart the bright hope glows, with seekers of the light are one. One in the freedom of the truth, one in the joy of paths untrod, one in the soul's perennial youth, one in the larger thought of God. The freer step, the fuller breath, the wide horizon's grander view, the sense of life that knows no death, the life that maketh all things new.
Our reading this morning is from a book by legal scholar Leonard W. Levy titled The Establishment Clause. I'm going to start with a fun fact. I've been looking at your hymnals this morning, and you have first edition gray hymnals. And the reason I know they're first edition, if you turn to the page with the sources and principles, right here, right at the front, you'll find 5 sources, not 6. Because when the hymnal was published, the Unitarian Universalists had not yet ratified the source of earth-centered traditions. So this book was out of date before it was even published. And to me, that's just a fun fact, but it's also, that's who we are. This morning, Kate and I drove past a church called the Church of the Rock. Unitarian Universalism is not a rock, it's a river. In this morning's sermon, we're going to go to the headwaters of that river. Leonard W. Levy starts by quoting Irish wit Finlay Peter Dunne on religion, presumably in an Irish brogue, so I'll do my best. Religion, be itself, is a queer thing. Be itself, it's all right. But sprinkle a little politics into it, and dynamite is naught but bran flour compared to it. Alone, it prepares you for a better life. Combined with politics, it harries you into the next life. Notwithstanding the First Amendment's Establishment Clause, Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion, religion actually saturates American public life. Every president swears the oath of office with one hand on a Bible and often says, "So help me God." The president has annually declared a national day of prayer on the first Thursday in May. The Supreme Court opens its session after the bailiff has asked God to save the court and the United States. Every state legislature, as well as Congress, starts its daily session with prayer. The list of public religious declarations is almost endless. But we need to keep in mind the words of Clinton Rossiter, the conservative constitutional scholar, who wrote, "Men of power who know the least about the intent of the Constitution are the ones most likely to appeal to that intent for the support of their opinions." Gee, who could he be talking about? Back when I was in high school, Antidisestablishmentarianism was considered the longest word in standard English dictionaries. For the record, the longest word now is a medical term for a lung disease you get from inhaling dust from volcanoes. You know, it's amazing what you learn when you're researching sermons. But back then, when I was in high school, if you asked someone what anti-disestablishmentarianism means, the answer was likely to be along the lines of, well, I'm not sure, but I think it has something to do with the Church of England. So that's where we're going to start. The Church of England is, of course, the established church there, still funded partly with government money. King Charles is still the nominal head of the Church of England. 400 years ago, when religious freedom was a radical idea, state-supported, state-controlled religion just seemed like the natural way to do things. Of course, that got controversial when the Puritans came along, and it was the Puritans who, of course, settled New England, but the Church of England, Anglican as it's officially known, soon followed, and for the record, American Anglicans are better known as Episcopalians. But establishment was still taken for granted in the colonies, and it caused trouble practically from the beginning. New England was Puritan, the Mid-Atlantic was mostly Anglican, Pennsylvania was mostly Quaker, on and on. 11 of the 13 colonies funded their established churches with taxpayer money. The dispute was over which Christian tradition in a colony would get that money. And then came the American Revolution, which changed the argument even more. Some states dropped establishment after the Revolution, but in Massachusetts, the Puritans had evolved into what we now call Congregationalists, and they were not about to give up that advantage. Also, as you may know, by the very early 1800s, the wealthiest, most educated, most liberal members of congregational churches were becoming known as Unitarians. And with Unitarians in the lead, the congregational churches in New England would hang on to state tax support for another 2 generations after we gained independence. And for the record, the United States Constitution did not change that. To explain, we ratified the Constitution in the 1780s, followed by the Bill of Rights in 1791. And the First Amendment of the Bill of Rights does say in part, Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. The first half is called the Establishment Clause, and the second is the Free Exercise Clause. But at the time, the First Amendment applied only to the federal government. Congress shall make no law. States could do whatever they wanted on religion, and some did. Unitarianism and Universalism had almost the same theology back then, but they were very different in other ways, including their attitudes toward establishment. The Universalists were disestablishmentarians. That is, they wanted to do away with state-supported religion, but the Unitarians were strong anti-disestablishmentarians. And that's where those two words come from, and it was a huge bone of contention between churches in New England. From the Puritans on, New England's congregational churches had always received taxpayer money. They controlled the state legislatures, and they voted to keep right on funding their own churches even after independence. And as far as the Congregationalists and Unitarians were concerned, establishment was not just a way to fund their own religion. It was also a way to beat down other churches. Article 3 of the Massachusetts State Constitution put religious discrimination into black and white. As originally drafted, Article 3 was pretty even-handed. It stated in part, quote, all monies paid for the support of public worship and all the instructors in religion and morals shall, if the individual taxpayer require it, be uniformly applied to support the teacher or teachers of his own religious denomination, using the non-inclusive language of the time, his own religious denomination. In other words, your taxes would automatically go to the local congregational church, but if you were not Congregationalist, you could fill out a state form, and your taxes would then go to your own church. So far, so good. And then Congregationalist state legislators got to work on it. And by the time it became law, Article 3 specified that taxpayer money could only go to, quote, Protestant teachers of piety, religion, and morality. In other words, if you were Catholic or Jewish, therefore not Protestant, your money automatically went to the local congregational church, nothing you could do about it. That they also declared that because Universalists did not believe in eternal damnation, they were impious and immoral, so their tax money went to the Congregationalists as well. Universalists could not even run for the state legislature because Universalists didn't believe in damnation. The state held that they could not be bound by a legally required oath. Therefore, Universalists could not run for public office. They could not serve on a jury. They could not even testify in a court of law. Welcome to Massachusetts in the early 1800s. As humorist Finley Peter Dunn put it, when people mix religion with politics, the result is worse than dynamite. Unitarians, bless their little hearts, were running many of the congregational churches, so they thought Article 3 was just a dandy law. Similar though their theologies were, the Unitarians had zero sympathy for the Universalists. Interestingly enough, most of Massachusetts' state constitution was drafted by a Unitarian lawyer named John Adams, who later became our second president. But he disliked state-supported religion, so he handed off Article 3 to be written by somebody else. He didn't approve of establishment, but he did nothing to oppose it. Like Episcopalians, Lutherans and Baptists were also Protestant Christian, so they could apply to have their tax money sent to their own church, but they hated Article 3 as well. They could technically apply for what was called a certificate of exemption, but it was a lot of hassle and paperwork and often got lost in the bureaucracy, so the Congregationalists got most of their money as well. From the late 1700s up through the 1820s, attitudes toward established religion in New England were opposite what they are today. Most educated, wealthy New Englanders were either Congregationalist or Unitarian, and they supported establishment. Non-Congregationalists, especially Catholics, Jews, and the lowly Universalists, hated it. A Baptist minister named Isaac Backus wrote a long list of complaints about persecution by the Congregationalists. Tax law was just a part of that. Our fathers came to this land for purity and liberty in their worship of God, he wrote. But affairs of worldly greed bring an exceeding dark cloud over us, till many declare their sorrow that we ever revolted from Great Britain. Religion mixed with politics is worse than dynamite. Unitarians and Universalists both believed that Jesus was human, not God. Neither had much use for the Trinity or popular notions of hell or damnation, but they were poles apart socially. Few Unitarians cared how Universalists got treated. On the topic of Universalists running for public office, one Unitarian wrote in an editorial, "There can be no right to be elected to an office. Election to office goes upon the trustworthiness of the elected, and no man can claim as a matter of right the confidence and good opinions of his neighbors." Close quote. No politician could write a slimier piece of gaslighting than that. It glosses over the very fact that Massachusetts law didn't allow Universalists to even ask their neighbors' opinions on running for office. It doesn't matter who you are or what you believe, religion mixed with political power corrupts whoever has the clout. Educated, proudly open-minded though they claim to be, when Unitarians controlled state government, they didn't hesitate to use that power to help themselves and oppress the religious minority. As the years rolled by, though, Trinitarian Congregationalists began to rebel against Unitarian control in many congregational churches. By 1819, they didn't even want to go to church with the Unitarians. And that came to a head in Dedham, Massachusetts, in a legal case that split that congregation and had drastic consequences to religious establishment. Most members of the Dedham congregation were Orthodox Trinitarian Congregationalists, but the Board of Trustees were Unitarian. And when the trustees chose a Unitarian minister, most members walked out. They took with them the furniture, the communion silver, and they thought state government tax support. The Unitarian trustees quickly filed a lawsuit. "We've been fighting for a long time, guys. We love each other even while we're fighting." That's kind of how it works. The Unitarian trustees quickly filed a lawsuit to get back the property and the state tax money. And even though Unitarians were a minority in that congregation, the judge who handled the case also happened to be Unitarian, so he ruled in their favor. He held that the original church and its board of trustees were the official parish in that community, and therefore they were entitled to keep everything. And the same thing happened in other parishes. So the Unitarians won that round. But that legal victory was the death knell for state-supported religion in New England. Before the Dedham case, Orthodox Congregationalists had no sympathy for Jews, Catholics, and Universalists. And then they found themselves in the same boat with their money going to support someone else's church. So Orthodox Congregational publications reversed their editorial positions and began to argue for disestablishment. Before the Dedham case, they had considered Isaac Backus, the Baptist minister, to be a noisy troublemaker. Now they started quoting him. In one article, Congregationalists even condemned legal persecution of Baptists without mentioning that they themselves had made the laws that did the persecuting. And it took years, but state after state voted to disestablish. Massachusetts was the last holdout. Unitarian political clout clung to state money until 1834. More than 40 years after the First Amendment was ratified, Massachusetts finally stopped giving state taxpayer money to state-supported churches. The framers of the Constitution were all dead by that time. As written, the Bill of Rights did not object to state establishment of religion, or to be more accurate, the framers had known it would be hopeless to even get into that quarrel on a statewide level. It was only the federal government that couldn't establish or prevent any church. Many of the founders did see the danger of mixing politics and religion. Thomas Jefferson and his protege, James Madison, advocated a wall of separation. It's a well-known phrase, between church and state at all levels. And that phrase, wall of separation, actually comes from Roger Williams, who founded the colony of Rhode Island in the 1600s. And of course, not all the Constitution's framers agreed with that, but the establishment controversy in Massachusetts shows exactly why Williams, Jefferson, and Madison were right. Churches don't wield political power any more justly than any other corporation. And then came the Civil War. In order to abolish slavery in the South and extend rights to former enslaved people, the United States ratified a series of constitutional amendments. The 13th Amendment did away with slavery itself. Crucial to our religious journey, the 14th Amendment made the federal government the watchdog for all human rights at all levels of government. It states in part, no state shall make or enforce any law which shall deprive any person of life, liberty, or property, nor deny to any person the equal protection of the laws. And through a long series of Supreme Court decisions on church and state, the courts began to apply the establishment and free practice clauses of the First Amendment by way of the equal protection lens of the 14th Amendment. And I have to mention, that is not what the framers of the Constitution ever intended. They never saw that coming. And it's doubtful that the men who wrote the 14th Amendment saw how it would later be applied to religious issues. I think we're a lot better off because it worked out that way. To me, this whole canard about basing 21st century legal decisions on the so-called original intent of the framers is just a crock of baloney. This piece of history shows us just how important separation is between church and state. But there's also a challenge to that separation. We are challenged always to stand up for our beliefs in the face of fear, ignorance, and greed. Individual freedom of belief needs to keep us asking the hard questions, working toward just and loving community and covenantal relationship with one another. But no religious tradition or belief can keep people from being heedless and power hungry. We're constantly challenged to stand up to the shadow side of human nature. Here's another worthwhile fact, just to mention it. If you think separation of church and state is important, you need to thank the Universalist side of our tradition, not the Unitarians. The Universalists fought long and hard against the Unitarians for church-state separation. They hand that tradition down to us. The Unitarians did inherit the Puritan tradition of what's called congregational polity, with each congregation responsible for its own destiny. That's what actually allowed Unitarianism to even develop, and it's why each Unitarian congregation, each Unitarian Universalist congregation still manages its own affairs in our own day, including paying the bills, keeping the building in good shape, and so on. These two traditions, now combined, are the reason this congregation and every Unitarian Universalist congregation is the product of its own members' inspiration and perspiration. Federal, state, and local governments cannot tell you what to think, say, or do. Thank the Universalists for that one. Meanwhile, the National Unitarian Universalist Association also cannot tell you what to believe, or what your order of service is supposed to look like, or even whether you have to have a minister or who that minister will be. It's your job to do religion according to your own best insights and your democratic vote. But of course, that also brings a challenge and a responsibility. No one can tell this congregation what to think, say, or do. But no one but you is going to do the work or pay the bills either, or keep the lights on and the rain out, or keep the air conditioner running. Back when I studied ministry at Meadville Lombard Theological School, back when it was on Chicago's South Side, there was a little kitchen tucked into a dank corner of the basement of the main building, and over the sink there was this hand-printed sign that read, "Thou art responsible for thine own theology and thine own dishes." And I think that pretty well sums up Unitarian Universalism. No one can tell us what to believe, but we're also responsible for our own dishes. No one else will wash or stack them for us, or pay the bills, or brew the coffee, or pull the weeds, or paint the walls. And you know what? I kind of like it that way. I'm pleased and honored to support my church down in Bloomington. It's an essential piece, that support and that participation is an essential piece of our religious freedom, and I hope it helps you be pleased and honored to support yours. Amen. May it be so.
Well, thank you so much. And in the spirit of drying our own dishes, it's time for the offering. See what I did there? We choose to welcome the spirit of life and share our resources, to actively nudge our world toward a heaven on earth. And this month, we are sharing our loose change for social change offering with a local not-for-profit called Aaron's Farm. And this time, the insert in your order of service comes with pictures of Aaron's Farm. So let me tell you a little bit about them, because it's the first of the month. Aaron's Farm is located in Hobart, just east of our Robinson Lake Park. It's a non-profit horse and farmed animal sanctuary for abandoned and abused animals. Their mission is to provide an amazing home for their rescued animals, as well as a unique opportunity for the public to get the needed exposure and education about animals in the food and farm industry. To this end, they offer school programs, free camps, and a variety of classes for children and adults. Being a nonprofit, Aaron's Farm is always needing supplies and donations to continue their great work. FIA will use your August 2024 loose change for social change contribution in the 10 cups to generate a check payable to Aaron's Farm. Because they rescue a wide variety of animals, Aaron's Farm also seeks gift certificates to Tractor Supply, Home Depot, and Menards. And if you'd like to go beyond your loose change contribution and buy a gift card for them yourself, please place it in an envelope marked Aaron's Farm, and FIA will deliver it to them with our check from the church. There's a list of supplies that they need, and you can put those supply items in the rolling wood box in the parish hall. I will say that 2 Fridays ago, my husband Pete and Marianne from our Faith in Action Ministry visited Aaron's Farm and couldn't take a tour because they had 2 different school groups coming in to take a tour of the place and get to pet the animals and understand better what's going on at their sanctuary. And I am hoping that we can get a little field trip over to Aaron's Farm because they're our neighbor and they're doing some really good work. So please consider donating to this worthwhile cause. And here are the logistics. In this congregation, the money in the baskets goes to sustaining the mission of our congregation. And in the mission, the money in the tin cups for this month would go to Aaron's Farm. For those not with us in person today, there's an online link for both one-time and regular donations. So I need 4 volunteers to please come forward to help carry the baskets and cups. For your prayers, your presence, your service, and your gifts, we are truly grateful. We have a couple of announcements today. So on Saturday, August the 10th, we are celebrating our congregation's 150th anniversary. It's going to be a great time for us to welcome the public in looking back with us and remembering to celebrate with us all the wonderful things we are doing now for our community and to look forward with us to our next chapter. In order for us to fully take that step with us into the next chapter, after our celebration that this upcoming Saturday is over, we need to hear your voices, the voices of the people who show up for worship service, or Spirit Circle, or First Hour, or Explorers Club, or Sistering, or the book group, or any of our many ministry teams in our congregation. So if you are at all involved in the life of this congregation, we hope that you'll join us on Saturday, October the 19th, to give your input on what makes this a vibrant, life-giving congregation, and to dream together about our future. We are hiring a facilitator for that gathering on October the 19th, and the more of you that participate and share your thoughts, the better our future can be. So write this, save this date, because we look forward to seeing you on Saturday, October the 19th. Do we have any other announcements? Please.
Many of you, some of you know my son Jeff, who lives in Massachusetts. He wrote a piece for the 275th anniversary of his church in Northborough, Massachusetts. If you want to figure out the math, that's 1745 was when that congregation started. Anyway, next week we are singing the piece that he wrote for that celebration. I see a number of new people here. I hope some of you are singers. We are going to rehearse at 2 o'clock next Saturday before the service. Please join us if you'd like to sing. Jeremy has the music. You can pick it up after the service so you can take a look at it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dick. Now, if you would please rise in body or spirit as you are able and join us in singing number 287, Faith of the Larger Liberty, in your gray hymnal.
Our closing words are brief and to the point today. As the old Universalists used to say, may words laid in our ears today through grace become the fruitful seeds of kinder thoughts and greater deeds. Shalom, salam, blessed be, and amen.
join me in extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Everybody's welcome to come into the parish hall for snacks and conversation.